It's Monday, May 11th. I'm Dion, and this is your Hope Update. It's pretty exciting right now, at least it is for me. There are things that are beginning to talk about reopening after a long season of things being closed. And I'll just say this from the start, that we haven't figured out everything as a church yet. We'll be back to church, at least on some level, in a limited way, in person in a few weeks. We have a lot to figure out yet, and man, there are a lot of regulations, but probably May 30th, May 31st is what we're thinking is earlier, but I'm speaking ahead of turn. Wait for more information to come soon on all of that. Reopening is exciting, I say, for a lot of us, but I know it also makes a lot of us nervous too. I shouldn't say a lot of us, definitely all of us nervous. After kind of reluctantly pulling away from life as normal and learning to live a different way, it feels a little scary just to step back out into the world and to know that, hey, this virus hasn't gone away and there's still threats out there, there's still difficulty out there, and so how do we go forward? And I think a lot of us have grown over time. This is not a current thing, but a lot of us have grown over time to live with a sense of hyper responsibility for ourselves, for our safety, our well-being, and the well-being of others in the world. And responsibility is an important value. It's something that Jesus teaches, that we are stewards from the beginning. Actually, in creation, we're taught to be stewards, that we have a responsibility. Jesus reemphasizes that point, that we have a sense of responsibility in the world, but we're not meant to live with the sense of hyper responsibility, of feeling overly responsible. This weekend in service, one of the questions that Doug Moss got was a question that asked about, it was something about, how do I know that when I support an organization like a church, that my support isn't causing unintended consequences? It's kind of this question of, I'm trying to do something good, but what if there are things I don't know about that aren't so good? And that question just reminded me of, man, I think all of us live with a sense in life that more is on us, that we carry a heavier burden than we were ever meant to carry. We feel a sense of responsibility for things that we were never meant to feel responsible for. And so here's what I want to encourage you in. As things begin to reopen, as we feel nervous, as things still remain uncertain, here's what I want you to know. God holds your life. God holds your life. It's always been true, and it's still true. And not only does God hold your life, but he holds the world in his hands. I want you to hear from the book of Daniel. Fascinating book, by the way, but I'll keep it short here. Daniel is speaking to a great king, and he's speaking a word from God. And here's what he says. He says, but you, Belshazzar, his son, he's kind of talking about the history of some stuff. You have not humbled yourself, though you knew all these things about God. Instead, you've set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You took some holy things from the temple and you used those in a dishonoring way. You kind of defiled these holy articles, he says. He says, you praise the gods of silver and gold, of bronze and iron, wood and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. And here's what I want to get to. He says, but you did not honor the God who holds in his hands your life and all your ways. Say that again. But you did not honor the God who holds in his hands your life and all your ways. So here's Daniel speaking to this pagan king who does not honor or know the God of the Bible. And Daniel says pretty clearly, he holds your life. I don't care that you're a king. I don't care that you've got servants responsible to you. I don't care that your actions affect many. There's one greater who holds in his hands your life and all of your ways. Maybe even better, I love the way that Psalm 18 puts it. Psalm 18 has become a favorite psalm of mine over the last couple of years. And especially as we were wrestling with our name change, this was a psalm that I took a lot of comfort in. It says this, Psalm 18, starting at verse 30, it says, as for God, his way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. So we feel a sense of hyper-responsibility to live perfectly, to live ethically, to be responsible. And I think that's some of what makes us nervous about stepping back into life. For those of us who are in states or regions where we can do that, how do I know I'm doing the right thing? How am I being responsible? It can become paralyzing. Again, we're called to responsibility. We were never called to a sense of hyper responsibility. One of the things that I like to say here at work, I say it to my kids all the time, is we control the inputs. We don't control the outputs. We try to do the best we can, and we do, and we live in a way that we think is responsible and helpful. God ultimately controls all the outputs, and so we can take some of the burden off of ourselves. We don't have to pressure ourselves to get the outcomes that we need. God's in charge of that. So his ways are flawless. His ways are perfect. But then it says this about us: he shields all who take refuge in him. So when we look to God, when we acknowledge, God, I control the inputs, you control the outputs, I'm just trying to do the best thing. I look to you for strength and comfort and protection. He'll shield you, it says. Then it goes on, it says, for who is God besides the Lord? There's no other God but our God. And who is the rock except our God? It is God who arms me with strength, and he keeps my way secure. He makes my feet like that of a deer. He causes me to stand on the heights. I think of those crazy mountain goats, not deer, but those crazy mountain goats that can like climb up the sides of hills, and it almost looks like how are they defying gravity? Somehow God made them to be able to stand on those heights, to stand securely. And that's what God does for us. Even when we stand in vulnerable situations, he makes our feet secure. He trains my hands for battle, even battles against unseen viruses. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. And then he says this, you make your saving help my shield, O God, and your right hand sustains me. Your help has made me great. You provide a broad path for my feet. It's not a skinny, dangerous trail, but God, you clear the way for me so that my ankles do not give way. As life goes on, and again, it's exciting, but it's also scary. I just want you to remember, it's not all on you to figure out how to keep yourself safe, how to keep other people safe, how to live 100% ethically, responsibly, without any unintended consequences. It is your job to be smart, to be wise, to do things with as pure a heart as you can muster. But God holds your life. And we see throughout the scriptures that that's a really good thing, because he's a God who's always, his ways are always pure. His ways are flawless. He's not caught in a moral quagmire of things that we get kind of stuck in. He takes what we offer. He takes the things that we do. He takes how we live, and he controls the outputs. He makes them all work out in ways that he knows to be best. So if I could do one thing for you today, this week, over the next month, it would be to help you live responsibly, but to take from you the burden of hyper responsibility, so that you could just remember that, yeah, we're all trying to do the best we can. And that's what Doug Moss said this weekend. We're all trying to do the best we can, but God holds our life. And who are we to think that we, by our actions or responsibilities, can thwart what God is trying to do, that we can get in the way of what God is trying to do? Who are we to think that it's all on us when we have a good and loving God who has demonstrated how good he is by giving us Jesus, and a million other ways he demonstrates that he's good? Who are we to think that we can thwart the goodness of God, or that we can take ourselves out of his loving care? You can't. He loves you. He holds your life, and he holds the lives of everyone around you. So I want to encourage you to live responsibly, yes, live thoughtfully, yes, but live freely, knowing that it's not all up to you. You control the inputs, God controls the outputs, and he's a good and loving God. He holds your life. So go about your day, go about your week securely, knowing that he is providing a broad path for your feet, so that your ankles do not give way, your heart does not grow faint, because you have a God who loves you, he's with you, and he's for you, and he holds you. Let me pray. God in heaven, give us the wisdom to live responsibly. Also, just release us from the burden of hyper responsibility, so that we can go about living our lives trusting you for the outcomes. God, remind us right now that you hold our life, that we can't do anything against your plan for our lives, really. We can't shorten our lives. We can't add to our lives. God, you hold us. And God, just give us a sense of security right now as I'm praying, to know that you hold us and that you're good. So God, help us live a little lighter, a little more freely, responsibly, but not hyper-responsibly, knowing that we're held by a powerful, good, and loving God, that you provide protection not only for us, but for the people around us, and you're constantly working things out in ways that are beyond our understanding, but they're always good. Help us trust you, God, and help us live freely in that trust. We pray in Jesus. Amen. All right, more to come on how we're going to be reopening very, very soon. In the meantime, don't forget midweek worship Wednesday night. Man, 20 minutes, beautiful singing, short, thoughtful message. You don't want to miss it whether you watch it Wednesday or later. It comes out Wednesday, and we'll be in touch soon. Until then, God holds your life. Don't forget it.